Hey guys, so class literally just ended, but we didn't get a chance to compose some fourth species as a group, and I didn't want to leave you completely on your own, so I'm actually going to take the bottom of the handout. So this is the handout where we practiced drawing out some suspensions, and I'm going to work through the fourth species composition at the bottom, just to give you an idea of a process that might or might not work for you. I'm going to start with the cadence, because that is a formula we know we have to follow. So I'm going to go ahead and just start myself there. We know the last measure has to be an octave with a whole note. And we know that with fourth species, that cadence is preceded by a 7/6 suspension. Or if you want to think in scale degrees, you've got a 1/7/1 leading into the cadence. So I'm going to sketch that in. So here's my sev, here's my 1, oops, sorry, and here's the suspension itself, so the preparation and the suspension, and that gives us a 7/6 to our final octave, and gets us set up so that when you get to the end of this, I would hate for you to be in a place where you can't make it to that scale degree 1 to get to the cadence. So that at least is there as a benchmark and a reminder. Okay, let's go to the beginning now. Fourth species has to start with a half rest. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then we know that just like all of the other species that we've studied, we are going to start on some flavor of a perfect fifth or octave. So that means perfect fifth, perfect octave, or you can start on a 12th if you want. Looking at this contus, it trends upward for most of the line, right? It's going up for almost half of the piece. Now think about what suspensions do. The dissonant consonant suspensions we're interested in, they have to resolve down by step. So your counterpoint is generally speaking going to be moving downward. So I want to be continuously getting myself out of the way of the contus. So I'm going to actually start on the higher end of my options. So I'm going to put myself up here. And to start, I'm just going to start with a suspension and see what happens. So if we look at this, I started on a 12th, which is perfect. And if we're taking these intervals very kind of strictly and taking octave displacement into account, this is an 11th that steps down to a 10th. We did not have an 11/10 as an option for our suspensions. This is a 4/3 suspension. It's just got an octave displacement, right? So this is actually just a 4/3. And then if I were to suspend this B flat over the bar line, that's going to give me an octave on the downbeat, which is totally fine. In fact, so now we have this consonant preparation here. So there's our prep, and it's consonant. And then our suspension is also consonant. In class, we only worked on dissonant consonants. So 9-8, 7-6, 4-3. There are tons of other suspensions out there that will have two consonances. The beauty of them is you do not have to resolve this guy down by step now. Because it's not a dissonance, it does not need to resolve down by step. You can take the second half, the weak beat of this measure, and you can do whatever you like with it. So when you have suspensions that are consonant, that gives you the ability to move in other directions. I'm going to move this down. So we're going to go down to scale degree 2 here, because that's going to give me a nice 7/6 with the contus. So I went from an octave to a 6th. And then that gives me a nice 7/6 here. And what that also does is if I suspend this over, that gives me another consonant suspension. And you can see just in those 5 measures, I went from a 12th away from my contus to a 5th. So the contus is coming up, my counterpoint is coming down. We're getting really close to one another. So because I have, again, this consonant preparation and then consonant suspension, I don't have to resolve down by step, so I can do whatever I want. I'm going to use this opportunity to get out of the way and leap up. So I'm going to move, let's do a 10th. So now I'm far away from the contus again. I don't have to worry about colliding with it. And I am just going to see what I can do as far as some chains of suspensions. So that gives me a 9 here, which will step down to an 8. So there's our 9/8 suspension. I'm going to suspend that over and see what it gets me. D to C gives me a 7th. So now I have a nice 7/6 suspension. I'll step that down. And if I suspend this pitch over, I've got another consonance. So I've got another consonant suspension, which again gives me a little bit of room to move around. So I'm going to go backwards now because we're getting close to the cadence. I know I have to get to that scale degree 1 eventually. So how about I work backwards a little bit? What would happen if I had this suspension here? So it gives me a 7/6 in this measure, and I was able to just do a consonant leap here. And I think we're good to go. Put a little triangle around that guy. But I think we are pretty much okay. So let me play through this. We'll see what it sounds like. So all right, I'm not mad at it. So that gives you some ideas of what you can do as you're composing. Look for those double consonant suspensions. When you have them, they are an opportunity for you to move in another direction, for you to leap upward, get out of that kind of constant descending pattern. Another thing to keep in mind is you might get into a pinch where you just have to stop with your suspensions for a beat or two. Go into second species and just follow the second species rules. You'll only probably need 2 beats to get yourself back to a spot where, okay, I can now commence with my suspensions. We want this to be almost entirely suspensions, but there's very likely a chance that you'll get into a spot where, okay, I need to take a beat off to just get myself in a better place. Either I've got to get away from the contus, or I'm just in a weird spot where I don't have any good suspensions. So give yourself a beat, go into second species, and move out of the way to do something else and recommence with your suspensions. Okay, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, please let me know, but this is just kind of a little practice video for you to follow, and I'll have this fully annotated score up on Blackboard as well. Okay, guys, happy composing!